Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we will cover all of Pixelorama's basic features and how to use them. Let's start with an introduction of what the software is about. Pixelorama is a powerful raster graphics editor focused on pixel art. You can use it to create any kind of pixel art that you want, like landscapes such as this, your own portraits, and even graphics for your games, such as tilesets and animated sprites. You can then share your creations by exporting them as image files, spreadsheets, and even animated GIFs and videos. So why choose Pixelorama compared to other similar software? Well, for starters, Pixelorama has a variety of features and it's very easy to use. It has a lot to offer you, such as a wide range of tools, animation support, tools and algorithms that are tailored specifically for pixel art, a powerful layer system with blending modes and non-destructive layer effects, palettes, tilemap layers, and even some advanced features such as 3D layers and support for community-made extensions. It is also highly customizable since you can adjust the user interface and the shortcuts as much as you want, and it is being actively developed with frequent updates, each one adding even more new features, user experience improvements, and bug fixes. Another reason to choose Pixelorama is that it is free and open source, meaning that it has no restrictions on what you can do with it. You have full access to its source code and you can modify it to your heart's content without any licensing issues. Now, if you wish to support the development of the software, you can do so on our Patreon page or you can buy Pixelorama on Steam. The Steam version is practically the same as the free version, but with some added benefits such as automatic updates and achievements. Links will be in the description. Now, let's discuss the user interface. So, this is how Pixelorama looks like when you first open it up. The first thing you'll notice is this splash screen window right here, which has some buttons, like the new button which opens a new project, the open button which opens a project or an image file from your device, and the open last project which opens the last project that you edited in Pixelorama. And of course you will also notice this artwork right here. This was made by one of our community members over at our Discord server for the version 1.1 splash screen event. Before every major update for Pixelorama, such as 1.1 or 1.2 in the future and so on, we host an event, a splash screen event on our Discord server, where everyone is invited to participate by submitting their artworks for a chance to be included in this splash screen window right here. The link to our Discord server will be in the description. So, now we can just close this splash screen window and you can just start drawing. It's that simple. Of course, if you want to create a new canvas, a new project with a different size and all, you can either go to the file menu and click on new, or you can just, from the splash screen window, you can just press new, and from here you can change the size of the new project, or you can pick a size from the templates. You can optionally set a name for the project. You can change the background. By default it's set to a transparent color. And you can also change the color mode, which can either be RGBA or indexed, but you can also change that from the project settings later down the line, whenever you want. So let's create a new project and let's discuss a bit about the user interface. On the left side we have our tools. So in Pixelorama, the two main mouse buttons, left and right, can have different tools assigned to them. For example, by default, the pencil tool is assigned to the left mouse button and the eraser tool is mapped to the right mouse button. On the bottom side of the user interface we have our timeline, which has the different layers and frames which are used for animations, and we'll talk about them a bit later. On the right side of the user interface you can find some color options and some tool options. To change the color that the current tool is using, you can either choose a color from the color picker right here, from the spectrum, which has all available colors, Or you can choose a color from one of the preset palettes right here, like this. And if you want to add more colors to the palette, you can edit it, increase, let's say, its height or its width, and then just press the plus button, pick a color from the color picker, and just keep pressing plus. And if you want to delete some colors, you can just press the minus button right here. And if you want, you can choose another palette entirely. And you can also import palettes from the internet, or you can create your own new palettes within Pixelorama. Now let's talk about the different tools that Pixelorama has. First, we'll talk about the pencil tool, which is probably the one that you will use the most, and by default it is assigned to the P key on the keyboard. It is very straightforward. You just press the mouse button on the canvas and you start drawing pixels. But you also have some options, such as the brush size. Like if we set it to 6 pixels, for example, you can see that the affected area is a lot larger. And you could also change the brush type. Like, for example, this is the circular brush. If you want to draw, using a circular brush. And you can also choose an image brush, such as this one, and a lot more. And you could also set your own brushes as well. You also have some more options, such as the density, which just affects how many pixels will be drawn. The override color option essentially overrides the previous color with a new one, which is noticeable when you have some colors that have lower transparency. For example, if we draw with a lower transparency and then we attempt to draw different colors with even lower transparency, if override color is enabled, it will overwrite the previous colors. But if it is disabled, it will blend the new values together, and over time they become more and more opaque. The fill inside option essentially fills the area between the first and the last point of your strokes, like this. And the spacing option, which just spaces out the pixels that you place on the canvas. You can also set some gaps right here. And on the top side right here, you can also set some mirroring options, which essentially mirrors all your strokes to the different sides, either horizontally or vertically, or both. Another very interesting option is this pixel perfect mode right here. When it is disabled, when you draw, some of the corners have some double pixels, as you can see right here. But when it is enabled, when you draw, now all corners only have a single pixel. The next option right here is lock alpha, which basically just doesn't allow you to draw on transparent pixels, meaning that you can just draw on opaque pixels, like this. And the next option right here is the dynamics, which is basically mostly useful for people who use tablets. We have a stabilizer option right here, and some options to change the alpha and the size of the brush based on the pressure, the pen pressure, or the velocity, which is basically the speed of the mouse or the tablet. These options right here are called the global tool options, as they affect all tools. The next tool is, of course, the eraser tool, which works the same way as the pencil tool, but instead of drawing colors, it erases them, like this. You can also set different sizes, different shapes, brushes, just like the pencil tool. Okay, so let's say that we have different colors on the canvas, like this, for example, and we want a quick way to select them. Luckily, we have this color picker tool right here, which basically, if you click on a color on the canvas, you can see that it automatically sets it to that color. If you click a transparent color, the color becomes transparent. However, a much quicker way would be when you have your pencil tool, for example. If you hold down the Alt key, it basically acts as a color picker. And if you click on a color, instead of drawing on the canvas, it just picks that color, like this. An alternative workflow would be to just have the color picker mapped to the right mouse button and have it pick color for the left tool. And now every time you right click, you quickly pick a color that the left tool can use to draw, like this. And you could also use this method to quickly erase pixels by selecting a transparent color, enabling override color, and just drawing the pixels that you want to erase. The color picker button is mapped to the O button on the keyboard. If you want to map it to the right mouse button, you just have to press Alt and O. And the same is true for every button. If you want to, for example, set the eraser tool to the right mouse button, you just have to hold the Alt and press E to assign it to the right mouse button. Now let's talk about the bucket tool, which is mapped by default to the B button on the keyboard. The bucket tool is essentially responsible for quickly filling out an area. For example, this circular area right here, if we click on a pixel in this area, you can see that this entire area is being filled with the chosen color. And of course, you can quickly replace an area of the same color with a different one. Also, you can use the bucket tool to replace the colors in the entire canvas with a different color by changing the fill area to similar colors. And now if we click on this green color right here and replace it with the chosen orange color, you can see that even these pixels right here, which are not continuous to this area, have also been changed. And instead of a color, you can also fill with a pattern. For example, let's choose a pattern right here, this brick pattern, and use it to replace the transparent area, like this. Next, let's talk about the shading tool, which is mapped by default to the U button on the keyboard. The shading tool can be used to lighten or darken pixels in your canvas. For example, if we draw on these pixels right here, you can see that they automatically get brighter. And they get even more brighter the more you draw on them. And you can also make them darker, like this. This is the simple shading mode, which does not always give the best results. The shading tool has two more modes. The hue shifting mode, which does not only lightens or darkens the pixels, but it also changes their hue a little bit. For example, lightening colors tends to make them go a bit towards red or yellow, and darkening colors tends to make them a bit towards purple. You can learn more about this technique by watching an amazing video by Brandon James Greer, which I have linked down in the description. And last but not least, we have the color replace mode right here, which basically just takes colors from your palette, and you can choose how many colors you want this mode to take from your palette. This way you can have pre-made shades which come from your palette instead of having the shading tool calculate new color values. Alright, next let's talk about some shape tools. We have the line tool, which basically just draws a line from point A to B. Holding shift snaps it to perfect pixel art angles. Holding control centers the line on the click origin. And holding Alt when drawing a line displaces it to a different area. The line tool is mapped by default to the L button on the keyboard. The rectangle tool and the ellipse tool, mapped to the S and the C button respectively, function very similarly to the line tool. They basically just create rectangles or ellipses. And if you have the Shift pressed, you create circles or squares. You also have the option to fill the shape with the color instead of it being hollow. And we also have the curve tool, which is mapped to the J button by default, which can be used to quickly create curved lines. And a new addition in the newest update is the isometric box tool, which can be used to easily and quickly create isometric boxes like this. Perhaps we can dive more into how it works in a future video. Alright, next let's talk about some utility tools. We have the zoom tool right here, which can be used to zoom in and out on the canvas. When you click, it zooms out, or if you set the mode to zoom in, it zooms in. You can also just hold the mouse button and move left and right to zoom in and out. And in the tool options, you have the option to fit to frame or to set to 100% zoom. The zoom tool is mapped to the Z button on the keyboard. Along with the zoom tool, we have the pan tool mapped to the A button on the keyboard, which just moves around the canvas. There is also the move tool, which is mapped to the M button on the keyboard, and this essentially just moves the content of the image. Like we can move it here like this, or down, and so on and so forth. And now let's talk about the different selection tools. We have the rectangular selection tool, which basically creates a rectangular selection. Now, selections are very useful when you want to limit your drawing to a certain area. For example, if I just start drawing, you can see that all drawn pixels are limited in the selected area. And this is the same for all tools. For example, if I use the bucket tool, you can see that only the area inside the selection is being filled. You can also use selections to transform parts of your image. Like you can move them around, you can resize them, you can rotate them, and you can also shear them or skew them. And holding enter confirms the transformation. We have a variety of selection tools available for you. Besides the rectangular tool, we have the elliptical selection tool, we have the polygonal selection tool, we have the select by color tool, which essentially just selects all pixels that have the same color on the canvas. We have the magic wand, which does the same as the select by color tool, but it only selects colors on the continuous area. You can see that only this area is selected and not this area. We have the lasso tool, and we also have the select by drawing tool. We also have the crop tool, which is mapped to the V button on the keyboard, and this basically just allows you to resize the canvas like this, and then you can just hit apply and you can see that the canvas got bigger, or you could also make it smaller like this, and it's basically a quick way to resize the canvas. And last but not least, we have the text tool, which is mapped to the T button on the keyboard by default. Now, when you click somewhere, you can see that the box has appeared, and now we can just start typing some text like this. If we click outside the box and move the mouse around, you can see that the text tool also gets moved. You can also change the text style, like we can set it to bold, we can set it to italic, and we can also change the size. You can also change the font, and Pixelorama can read all of the fonts that are available in your device, and you can just choose any one of them. And now when you want to confirm the text, you can just click on this tick button right here. Or if you don't want to confirm a text, you can just press this X button right here, and you can see that the text won't get applied to the canvas. And that's all for the available tools that Pixelorama currently has. We are looking to add even more tools, and I will maybe make more videos that explain these new tools in the future. Next, let's talk about the timeline. So the timeline is mainly used for animations, but it also has layers. For example, let's create a new layer and set it to a solid color. Let's just pick a red one right here. And if you want to use this layer as a background, you can just move the layer to the bottom like this. And as you can see, the previous layer is now rendered on top of the other layer. There are multiple layers as well, like for example group layers, which can be used to organize multiple layers. And there are also some 3D layers, tile map layers and audio layers, which we may discuss on future videos. Now let's say that we want to make this ball right here fall, over time. We can add new frames by pressing this plus button right here, or we can clone frames by pressing this button right here. Let's clone this frame and let's use the move tool to just bring it down a bit. And just keep doing it over and over until it touches the ground. And now if we press the play button right here, you can see that the ball is falling. Now, of course, it's not the best animation, but you get the point. You can also draw while the animation is playing, like this. If you want to organize multiple frames, you can first select them by holding Shift and clicking on the frames that you want to select. Now you can see that we have frames 2, 3 and 4 selected. Now if we right click on a frame and click on new tag, we can create a new tag. Let's just call it a tag. And as you can see, now frames 2, 3 and 4 are organized in the same tag. If you want to rearrange it, we can just drag its sides like this. If we want to delete it, we just have to click on it and just press delete. Now, as I have already explained, these right here are layers and these are frames. The intersections of layers and frames are called cells. And these squares right here are basically the cell buttons. And if we right click on them, you can see that a menu appears that contains some options and operations that we can do to individual cells. Like frames, multiple cells can also be selected and multiple layers can also be selected. Selecting multiple cells allow you to use tools to all of these multiple cells at the same time. For example, if we for some reason decide that we want to move the ball on frame 2 and 4, we can just select the cells on layer 1 and frames 2 and 4 by just holding Control and clicking on them both. And now if we use the move tool and just move them up, you can see that both of the cells have been moved up, but the rest of the cells have remained as they were. And you can also draw on multiple selected cells. For example, if I select all of the background cells right here and just draw on them, you can see that the drawing that I just made has been applied to all cells. Pixelorama also has a variety of image effects. To access them, you can go to the Effects menu, and as a demonstration, let's choose the Invert Colors effect. As you can see, it inverts the colors of the selected cell, and if you want, you can make it affect the entire frame, or even all frames, or even all projects. If you have multiple cells selected, for example these 4 right here, and invert the colors, you can see that all of the selected cells have their colors inverted. However, we also have the option to apply these effects non-destructively. This essentially means that these changes will not be applied to the image data themselves, and you can always revert and even modify them on the fly. To do that, you can choose a layer, press this effects button right here on the timeline, and then add effect. Let's pick the outline effect. As you can see, all cells of that layer now have a white outline generated around them. By going to the effects button again, you can also change on the fly some of the options, such as the color of the outline, its width, the brush type, if it's an inside the outline, or if you only want to keep the border. The fact that the layer effects are non-destructive mean that you can make changes to that cell and the layer effects will also apply to them. For example, if we draw, you can see that the white outline is being generated on the fly around each pixel that we draw. If we go again to the effects button and disable the outline effect, you can see that the cell is as it would be if the outline effect was not applied to it in the first place. If you want to import a project or an image, you can go to the File menu click on Open, and then navigate around your file system to find the file that you want to import. You can import PXO files, which are Pixelorama's custom file format that contain the data for Pixelorama projects. You can import any type of image file, and you can also import sprite files, open raster files, and even some palette files. You can also drag and drop a file directly from your file manager to Pixelorama's window, and it will be imported. Now, apart from all of the panels that are already visible by default, Pixelorama has a lot more that are hidden. To access them, you can go to the window menu, and under panels, you can enable the ones that you want to check out. For example, you can enable the second canvas, which is basically a second canvas that you currently cannot draw at, but it can be useful for previewing from a different zoom level or position. Similar to that, you have the canvas preview, which is by default on the top left of the user interface. You have a perspective editor, and you have a recorder, which can be used to help you record time lapses of your drawing process. Similarly, you can also disable any parts of the UI that you don't want to see, like this. And if you want a quick way to disable all of the user interface besides the canvas, you can press F10 or go to the window menu and click on Zen mode. And to go back, simply press F10 again. If you're not happy with the default shortcuts, you can go to the Edit menu, Preferences, go to the Shortcuts category, and here you can see all of the shortcuts that are available in Pixelorama. To change them, you first have to change the shortcut profile. For example, from default to custom or by creating an entirely new profile. Now, let's say that you want to change the shortcut of the pencil button. You can go to the Tools group right here, go to the left, click on the left pencil button, click on the P right here, and then on the pencil button right here, and simply click the new shortcut that you want to assign. For example, I'm going to assign the letter B. Now, this letter is already assigned to the bucket tool, so Pixelorama warns me, and if I press OK, the B button on the keyboard is now assigned to the pencil tool, and the bucket tool no longer has a shortcut that is assigned to it. And now if I press B, well, let me first change tool. And now if I press B, you can see that the pencil tool is being assigned to the left mouse button. If you want to restore the default shortcuts, you can go again to the preferences and simply change the shortcut profile from custom to default. Now, if you want to export your artwork, you can go again to the File menu and this time click on Export. As you can see, a window appears, and from there you can change a variety of options such as the file path, the file name, the file type, whether you want to include all frames or a specific amount of frames based on their tags, whether you want to include specific layers. If you're exporting an animation, you can also change the direction of the animation, whether you want it to go forwards, backwards, or ping pong. You can also resize your artwork when exporting it, which is very useful when you want to share it to social media, because by default they apply bilinear filtering, which can make your artwork look a bit blurry, and resizing your artwork when exporting it fixes this issue. However, if you want to export your artwork to be used for game development, you must not resize it and instead let the game engine handle any resizing that may happen in your game. By default, you are exporting to a PNG image. If you have an animation, all frames will be exported as separate PNG files. If you choose to export as a GIF format, then your entire animation will be exported as one single GIF file. The same is true for APNG and any kind of video file. Now, to export to video, you first need to download FFmpeg, links will be in the description, and then you have to go to the Edit menu, Preferences, and here where it says FFmpeg path, you can either put your path to the FFmpeg executable binary, or if it is a part of your path environment variable in your computer, you can simply put ffmpeg here and it should work just fine. You can also export your animations in the form of a sprite sheet. You can change whether you want the orientation to be based on columns or rows. You can change the amount of columns or rows from here, and you can also automatically organize all of your different animation tags by row or by column. So I think that this covers all of the basic functionalities of Pixelorama. Of course, there are a lot more features that I did not show in this video because I wanted to keep it at the basic level. So if there's anything specific that you'd like to see me go through, please let me know in the comments. If you ever get stuck on something, you can always visit Pixelorama's documentation by going to the Help menu and clicking on Online Docs, or by pressing the F1 button on your keyboard. I will also leave a link to it in the description. Thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in more, please subscribe so you won't miss out on our future videos. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.